Good evening everybody, welcome to the Scrutiny Improvement Committee meeting for September. First on the agenda is to sign the minutes of the committee meeting held on the 19th of June. Any amendments or any objections to the signing of the minutes? Secondly, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Ian Robertson and Councillor Jason Pritchard. Declarations of members' interests. Are there any declarations of interest? Item 4 on the agenda is the corporate strategic plan, and I believe Tony is going to present a report in the absence of the performance and contracts managers.
I am, Chair. I think, just in summary, it is a good news report at this quarter. We are looking at the first quarter's performance data, so up to the end of June, and the indicators are green. I think we have 2 ambers, and there's a couple where we've not got the data yet. So I don't know how you want to do this, whether to go through, we can look at it page by page, but or if you just want me to...
Yeah, so we can just highlight the ambers and any red items page by page, that's fine by me.
So the first amber there is on B1.2, which is the increase in the percentage of council floor space with EPC rating, and that's cumulative over time. We're amber on there, we're reporting 69% against the 75% target, but we do expect to meet that within year. So not much more to say on that.
Okay. Any comments or questions? No.
I will just mention this one, although it's reported green. This is the amount of waste collected which is not reused, recycled or composted, and we report, I don't know if you can see the numbers there, the target is 117 kilograms per household, and we're actually showing 22.72 at this point in the year. However, we haven't got a full data set there, and we've got the data from, or in part from Amy, so this is picking up, say, the first quarter of the year. We've got data from Norse for June, but I think there were issues with getting the data from Amy for April and May. So whilst it's shown green, I think that is suspect, and we need to see how that comes through in the next quarter.
Okay, so when we took the first quarter, that's the first quarter of the council year or the financial year?
First quarter of the financial year, so that's from April to the end of June. The Norse arrangement started, I think, 4th of June, certainly early in June. So as I say, there's 2 months.
Data from
well, I believe we've got the Norse data, but I don't think we've got the data from Amy Enterprise. Despite great endeavours to get that, whether it will come, it ought to come, because they're reliant on it for final payments.
And is it being pedantic to say that obtaining the data wouldn't get us very far? I mean, what would we do with the data once it's received is the question.
Well, in terms of, I mean, it would help inform the bigger picture in terms of our performance target. I mean, it's very little we can do with Amy Enterprise now, but you know, I think it's just fair to point out that is not a true reflection, I think, for the first quarter, but it's a report on the data that was available.
Okay.
It looks like that's just the June data, doesn't it?
I
in which case
it is,
it's slightly less than a third of the target.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But I think it was always going to be an interesting figure for the first quarter, given 2 months of Amy at the end of the contract. I think that we are seeing good figures from Norse, but again, it's early. Certainly, this report is early in the process.
Excellent.
And the amber here, this is H1.1, number of e-enabled services added or improved on from the council. So we had a target of 2 within the first quarter. We've achieved 1, but we believe we'll get there in the remainder of the year. A lot of IT effort was diverted into set-up work around the Norse contract and the new telephone system during the first quarter. So, with no great concerns about that. And H4.1, which is residents benefiting from voluntary sector services commissioned by the council, and we got a target of 13,500 for the first quarter, and we're reporting 13,339. So a very near miss, and again we expect that to pick up during the year.
And how's that data compared? So are we relying on data returned by the voluntary organisations?
That we fund, yes.
Sorry?
Yeah, the organisation we fund,
Yes.
as part of their performance requirements to give us usage data.
So I think generally we get reliable data,
Yes.
and so it's just a whisker under the target.
Sorry, Tony, I know it is a whisker under, but it is still under. And, is there any sort of, because you'd sort of hope it was over if you see.
Yeah.
I mean, have we had any feedback? I mean, is there any particular instances of one organisation that's...
Well, if we thought it was not going to be achieved by the end of the year, that would be red. Because amber means within 5% and it's going to get back.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't know whether it was across the board or whether there was one particular organisation that let the side down, as it were.
Well, there's breakdowns in there. I'm just trying to read. It's a very small script. I mean, things like DACT, for example, not having their shop mobility might have had an impact.
Yeah, okay.
Not 100% sure, but it's.
Yeah, but there was nothing's jumped out. There's nothing.
No, we would have put that in there.
That's really what I'm driving at.
Fair question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's demand led anyway. So.
I think I accept it's a whisker below as opposed to a whisker
I
above,
understand.
and it's not a dissimilar position to last year.
Yeah, and it does. You can see it varies slightly. We had amber in the second quarter last year, and it was well above the annual target by the end of quarter 4. So, yeah, I think it's the nature of the beast.
Can I just ask, these targets were presumably set before a decision to make a very big increase in contributions to voluntary organisations. Are these effects likely to come through before the end of the year? Has there been an adjustment to take account of that?
Yeah, and it has. I mean, Contact is that their data is included in here. So yeah, they have been adjusted.
I find it actually difficult with my glasses to actually see what the final figures are, but it doesn't seem to be much difference, 18, 19.
The targets haven't been adjusted because the targets had been set before the budget was approved, so it would be something that we would consider as we move into next year. So to answer your question, no, the targets haven't been adjusted.
But things like shop mobility not being available for some time, for part of this, because of their building works, will have had an impact. And they're kind of high volume. Some of the new providers that we fund don't have high volumes of usages like CAB and DACT do. So I don't think they would have made a big difference because it's Contact and I can't think what the other is off the top of my head. Bunch of contacts.
May I just ask, Maria, do we have qualitative standards for voluntary organisations that we plan to meet as well as the raw numbers?
Yeah, when we commission the services, they basically put in a proposal to say this is what we can do if you commission us to provide this service, and it is a range of measures, and that can come back and be renegotiated if they need to cut their cloth differently. So we can be responsive and agree, both sides can agree that, different changes to opening hours or whatever, if that's required in relation to demand and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
And this one is the final measure, which is a measure of performance against the plan in total, and it's showing 100%. So everything's either green or amber, or no data, as would be expected for this time of year. But I think we are first quarter, so we just need to be slightly cautious about that at this stage.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. Any further questions on that point? Fantastic. Okay, we shall move on then to the Community Safety Partnership annual report. And thank you very much, Maria, for stepping into Kevin's shoes at such a late
Yes, I do apologise that Kevin hasn't made it. On that administrative oversight, the meeting wasn't in his diary, and I just called him and he's virtually on his doorstep. So he is on Northampton, he's not going to get back in time. So I am sorry that you got me instead of Kevin. It's normally Kevin that comes and does this. Nothing in here that I'm not familiar with, because it's one of the services I provide, and I go to all the Community Safety Partnership Board meetings now, and have been doing for a little while. So this arrangement's been in place. It's well established since we emerged in 2008. It's fair to say we've gone through our norming, storming, performing, and through lots of different changes in all the organisations involved in partnership. We are actually managing still to identify the priority areas and actually be greater than the sum of our parts because of the partnership. And that's a real key role that Kevin provides, really. So it's the two district areas, so we're the key players. They've got a team over at Daventry, over at Southampton that complements ours. We used to host the unit, but now it's a case of their contribution is they put people in as well. So what we used to do for the whole unit, some tasks are performed by DDC officers now, and some tasks are performed by Southampton. So I attend for the council. There's lots of cross-county working, to be fair, on community safety partnerships, and there's with all the talk of mergers and so on, there's already started to be discussions about what's going to happen 2020 and beyond. Do we have a community safety partnership for the whole county, or two that mirror the two new councils? Certainly the police and the other large organisations would be lobbying hard for a county-wide. But even if you did have a county-wide, you're going to have some different types of work in different areas, because we've found through 10 years of good practice that actually you do need to, we've got a rural-focused rural task group that's very effective. Having the road joint action group works really well in Daventry and South Northampton, and it's kind of unique to our area, really. In a relatively small area like Northampton, the road issues are going to be less complicated than out in the sticks. So the road joint action group is a really effective way of getting all the different partners together to deal with that. There's quite a number of activities that is touched upon in the report, so I won't read it all out. I'm sure you've all had a chance to see it. We do get good attendance at the Community Safety Partnership Board meetings and at the joint action groups in between, and stuff can come through those formal meetings, and we deal with stuff ad hoc and it comes up as well. Certainly the arson task force in the town centre has been really effective. One thing we've noticed that I'm sure it covers in the report is that yes, there's less police county-wide, and certainly we've got less on our patch, but the difference now is that those police that are assigned to be in our district are neighbourhood policing. So they're not, whereas we had more police before, they could and were often pulled away to go and do responsive work, whereas now we've got fewer, but they are able to get a proper understanding of our patch. The other thing we've noticed is that as this new policing plan is falling into place, is that actually our fire service partners are increasingly able to be boots on the ground when we've got things going on, whether that's getting more involved in different meetings, doing some pilots for parking and things like that. But they also, they are boots on the ground at our events. If we're doing days of action anywhere. They were obviously a key part in some of the arson task force, which has been effective in combating what was becoming an increasing issue. And it is still true that Daventry's Community Safety Partnership is trying and testing stuff later gets rolled up to the rest of the county and beyond. So we're proud of a track record in that area. We're not saying every new thing we try turns out to be perfect, but we've got a really pretty good hit rate, and once we've proved the concept, it's often adopted elsewhere.
Could you give an example or two?
Some of the stuff happening with domestic abuse, for example, and so if now, as a result of pilots done in Daventry district, if the police attend a domestic abuse call, if there's a pregnant woman in the house, that now gets reported through to health to make sure that midwives and health are aware that the female living at this address has been involved or has witnessed or has been the perpetrator of domestic abuse. And similarly, police attend if there's children there, then the schools are advised. So through education, the names of those children, they're followed up, and the schools are advised the next school day. So schools will always be aware when children have been witnesses or, even worse, part of any instances in the home. So that kind of practice. And making sure, for example, that there's always a follow-up. So victims and perpetrators, there's always a follow-up from a suitable, whatever level it's determined at. It's considered through the MASH or whatever other agency, that's the multi-agency safeguarding hub. And there is a follow-up, so they're encouraged to, we're encouraging reporting, and we're putting all sorts of things in place to ensure there's a low level of recurring instances. So we have got a really good, we're quite happy that our reporting's gone up, because actually reporting's up, but the repeat incidences are very low for our area in comparison with our family group nationally. So that's an example of the sort of things we've done. So always looking to get on to try out new things that work. So there's the 4 action groups that's explained within the operation there from 3.1 onwards. So there's the joint action groups, the hate antisocial behaviour action group. We used to have separate groups, but we found that having a group to discuss individuals, there was so much overlap with the group that was to discuss areas that it made sense to do it all together. So that's what that came up, and we had to add hate into that because there needed to be a forum for it. But to be fair, that's a small part of any caseload. We're not saying we don't get any hate crimes, but they're small in number compared to the other stuff. The multi-agency risk assessment conference, that is a statutory requirement. That is dealing with people leaving prison and that sort of thing, and MAPA, so there's those statutory groups. Young Citizens continues to go from strength to strength, and we're now planning for the next events in Yardley Chase. They've been in all sorts of venues, Silverstone, the Saints I think last year, which was a nice idea, but perhaps didn't work as well as some of the other venues. The ones that took place at the Icon. So you may recall, like when your kids were at school or when you were at school, that you used to get, different agencies would come to school and do some presentation or whatever. This is about getting lots of children in one place, and the agencies can all do that over a 2-day period. Really effective. So it's everything from being streetwise, being smart about being aware of cyber issues, road safety, everything you can imagine. And knowing how the Blue Butterfly scheme was started at one of these, and that's rolled out countywide as well. So that's where you get people trained across all the agencies. So children know that somebody wearing that Blue Butterfly badge is somebody you can go and tell whatever's going on, and it does every event prompt something being disclosed and issues being dealt with.
Councillor Ritchie, did you have a question?
You suggest that there are difficulties in getting the agreement of schools to make this possible.
Sorry, which page are we on?
I'm looking at 3.5. There is more from what you were actually saying and presenting, because
yeah, the agencies struggled because you've basically got 1 or 2 people who maybe work county-wide, and their remit is to go into all these schools and do all these things, and actually they struggle to get diary time. There's just there's only so many events that each individual school can hold, which is why the beauty of this is that you set a date ahead in the calendar that the schools can put in their diaries the term before or even the school year before, and it's incredibly popular, oversubscribed every year.
So the problem is resources to do the work and not resistance from the schools?
Oh no, not resistance.
No, I
it's
misinterpreted
simply
what you
because
meant, yeah.
at this event they're
Yeah.
getting at least 12 different messages. Very
Yeah.
exciting day for them, and it's year 7, so 10 and 11 year olds. And it's a very exciting day for the kids, a day out of the classroom. But the benefit for all us agencies is actually we've got our captive audience.
Yeah.
And much better that they can plan for 2 days. We always get good uniform presents. You'll get sponsors for the event, like DHL will provide high-vis vests for kids and things like that. So it's been very popular. We're fully expecting that to be extended to Northampton in the near future. There's already been talked about such things, and similar events are being done now in other parts of the county.
So potentially another Daventry idea.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's certainly something that's worked out really well. We used to use the funding provided from the police actually, but we might have a few dribs and drabs left in reserves, but we don't get any funding for community safety like we used to. But despite changes in funding, changes in arrangements, cuts everywhere, we've sustained a strong partnership, and we're still able as a collective to be influential across the piece, really. Reduce duplication. There are some bits in the corporate plan that you've seen what's on there, and certainly Kevin reports crime types on a regular basis. I think that might be monthly, but it's at least quarterly, and I think he sends that to all councillors now. I certainly get it. Going back to when we first had a community safety partnership, you used to get this sort of 60-page incomprehensible document come from somebody at the police, when actually what we get now from Kevin, yes, there's facts and figures and lots of stuff in there for the nerds in us, but there's also, a couple of paragraphs of summary about what's changing. So that's kind of been Kevin's baby, really, and that's allowed us all to see what's what. We could all see straight away when the Home Office decided to put us in a new group. So it took a while, because suddenly we went from being top performers to being poor performers because of the different group we were put in, but people soon get used to all that stuff. So overall crime is low. We do get quite a bit of violent crime, a lot of which comes out of the prisons. He usually mentions that in the report. Not much we can do about that. Like he does mention it in here, violence offences recorded in Barby and Kilsby are entirely to do with the fact that we've got prisons in that ward.
I have a question first, then I'll come to you, Councillor Ritchie. With the crime figures, is online crime included within those numbers? Because something at the back of my head tells me that unless they've changed it, online crime wasn't included in official national
it depends if it's something that's reported in our area, it's captured in the crime figures. So it should be, but it's. I suppose that's going to come under a category. An awful lot of that goes under reporting. I'm just trying to think what category that would be under. He certainly gets all the detailed, all the different lines of data that goes into each heading anyway. So Kevin would be able to answer that, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, no problem.
But the partnership has set priorities for this year, ongoing with the hate and antisocial behaviour. Domestic abuse remains a concern. We have people that are both perpetrators and victims at the same time. It's got complex cases. It's in everyone's interest to sort that out. Child sexual exploitation, that continues to be a national theme. Sort of on the back of that, there is also something that the county is doing, which is adverse childhood experiences. So we're expecting to see that coming through. Not so much that it will become a Daventry and South Northampton priority, but it does link into this child sexual exploitation stuff. On the basis that these adverse childhood experiences can often be a factor in people becoming victims or perpetrators later. That whole story about life chances and so on.
Sorry, can we take Councillor Ritchie's question before we proceed?
Taking you back a few paragraphs, I just wondered whether it actually made sense to include crime committed within prisons in our statistics. You know, it's not as if the prisons are part of our community. They're not, you know, they're not people that we can actually reach or that we deliver services to them.
We would
And I
agree.
just,
It makes no sense at all, but these are national crime statistics, and they're recorded by area. But you know, if your postcode, if that was in that postcode that's in that local authority area, that's where it has to be reported. So yes, couldn't agree more. Silly, but we still monitor it to make sure it's not hiding some other problem, some other crime spree, say, or whatever. But yeah, that's the majority of the stuff.
And Councillor Amy Howard.
I know that we work closely with the Sunflower Centre, and we have a lovely lady that is approachable in the offices from the Sunflower Centre. Would you say that referrals to her is it being advertised enough for the referrals?
I mean, what they do is they have their own. We've taken part in annual campaigns or sometimes several different campaigns during the course of the year, because through the Northampton Domestic Abuse Services and Sunflower and all of the other agencies working around violence against women and girls and domestic abuse for them, what they tend to do is, I mean, we'll have campaigns like gathering, you know, stuff for Christmas, so anyone who's in a refuge has got access to, you know, there's gifts for them, and just practical stuff like toiletries and so on. But there's also things like we recently ran through salons and hairdressers, and making sure, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's quite eye-catching, because they know that victims of domestic violence are quite likely actually to talk to a fellow female who's not a family member and disclose and put in those contact details. So we've got all of the local salons and hairdressers taking part in those. So we'll take part in targeted, sort of quite low-key campaigns. Through the World Cup there was a big campaign, because actually win, lose or draw, you know, during football when there's a lot more drinking around, where you've got tensions in domestic circumstances anyway, that will often be a trigger. So there was, you might, if you're on social media, you might have spotted some of that stuff. So we've taken part in all of those within the partnership and wider. So they tend to be quite targeted, rather than generally raising awareness. They're trying to, you know, target their marketing quite closely, really, because you don't want to announce particularly where all your shelters are by nature. Interestingly, we do get quite a lot of domestic violence cases through homelessness, but more often than not, they're not in refuges. They're in their own home with measures in place to keep them protected. So that's what we call a sanctuary scheme. Sometimes that's just being provided with a special mobile phone that gets them straight through to the police station. Sometimes it could be a whole load of new locks and things in houses. We sometimes have to take homeless cases from out of area, but being a big rural district like ours, you can often, even within area, you might well be able to deal with a domestic violence case and have them rehomed within your area, but away from the original perpetrator.
So, just through the chair, do you get many people actually come into the offices?
Yes.
And then how does that get dealt with? So you walk into the reception.
Well, we all deal with, you know, if they will get advice, and they will be appropriately signposted to other agencies if required. But more often than not, we'll be dealing with them because they're a homeless case, because they've got a housing issue related directly to that. But we've literally had people run here with stab wounds in their heads. You know, that happened to a young girl only last year. Well, yeah, late last year. So people do actually see the local council offices as a place of safety, and all our frontline staff are trained in dealing with that. If somebody was running away from a perpetrator, we've got all the frontline staff are trained in conflict management, but the first responders, people like the caretakers and the call centre supervisors, have got advanced training, so they actually could potentially know how to force somebody out the building and so on, which has only been tried and tested a couple of times in the last year. But
Councillor Wesley had to stand up first.
Yeah, so unless this is on the topic, it's nice just to look it off. So,
Councillor
if you want to go first.
well, it was just whether the committee might want to think about referring what we've heard there, making sure that the leader of the council and chief executive are aware of it. You know, people use the county offices as a place, a safe place that they can come as a first port of call, even if we don't have the, you know, have the sort of professionals here that can immediately help.
We do have frontline staff that know what to do, know who to get
Well,
hold
they,
of.
you know, okay, you know, we don't necessarily have this sort of qualified counsellors and those sorts of people. But a couple of years' time, to make sure that whatever happens here, then there's at least something that is left behind that is going to be here to meet that sort of demand.
Like, on that, you don't mind?
I'm not saying this happens on a weekly basis. I'm just giving examples.
Thank goodness for that.
No, on that topic, Maria, we do have somebody here from Sunflower Charity, don't we, who's a professional who, it's not just our offices.
Yeah, I think they do various drop-ins in various places, and it'll be one of their, like I say, quite low-key, so somewhere where you could go and have a confidential discussion.
With a professional from the Sunflower people, who are supported by all the councils, I believe, probably not the county anymore, but definitely the police and crime commissioners.
Yeah, we're all collectively funding, including county council.
Oh, you are? They are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a source of controversy because of the way the last round of funding was operated, but there's another bid through to central government.
Yeah, and I do know that Amy's talking to Lucy, who runs it, with the Police and Crime Commission and the MP to try and get them to come to a scrutiny to explain what they're all about, so they'll give a better understanding to everybody, so hopefully that allows the King's question. I believe
Yeah, I mean, they're an organisation we operationally work closely with.
You haven't?
From them, but I understood that they were going to be invited to a statutory group
To do
meeting.
a 20-minute, 50-minute presentation, I believe, yeah. Choice.
I mean, the arrangement, what we've said going forward is that we would utilise a couple of places in a refuge, which we would fund from our homeless budget. So that's sort of our contribution was that they confirmed we would utilise the services they provide. But like I say, domestic violence doesn't always mean somebody going into a refuge. There are other ways of resolving. Wherever possible, you should and must keep somebody in their own home rather than upset, because that's not great for the whole family. Whether it's a refuge or bed and breakfast, not great. You want somebody in a supportive environment.
Yeah.
So I think that probably is a quick run through. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's all
Yeah,
great.
it's just a quickie. It's nothing in report. I'm just wondering whether there's anything that surrounds it. And obviously, there's sort of changing face of policing across the country. Obviously, we've got the major changes coming into force, but we've also had the sort of more enabling factor of PCSOs across the district with the parish councils, which the police and crime commissioners sort of instigate. Has that changed anything in how things are reported, collected, looked after, and is it envisaged that will be sort of taken on going forward?
I mean, it's fair to say the PCSOs and other innovations are definitely contributing positively to both policing and generally community safety partnership, and actually generally to being a helpful part of our frontline service provision that we do in partnership. So the town council they're funding a PCSO, she's in place. They're funding the Lone Ranger, that's what he calls himself, Sean, and he's been really positive contribution to the whole framework. I mean, both of them on different occasions have accompanied street homeless people and encouraged them to come in and been part. And then when we've identified actually that they're linked to other cases we're dealing with, we've been able to do that, and we've been able to give him good training and signposting. So yeah, I know the different villages are often looking at working together and potentially getting more feet on the ground. It's good that it's all dealt with through one sergeant, and the villager will obviously have a bit of a say in it. It's in their patch, that PCSO is covering their patch. But they need to have that overall support from a wider network. But yeah, PCSOs are a very positive contribution. If you'd have said to me 10 years ago they would be so popular, I'd be very surprised because there was a lot of resistance, the idea that they're not proper police officers. But actually, you know, they do a very positive role on the ground.
So we are seeing across the district that is working.
Yeah, where there's been issues that they've been able to be overcome. Sometimes there's been like personality clashes with different key people in villages and things like that. I know there was some villages that put together, you know, it's about managing their expectations about exactly what will and won't be achieved through having a PCSO. But generally, that, you know, they're a positive part of the community. They're all about building ties that are very visible, get back to people quickly.
Certainly my experience dealing with parish councils in my ward is that they really, if they haven't got one, they really want just that tie between the community and the police and that visible presence. And,
Yeah.
you know, just a bit more understanding about the particular needs of their communities. So.
I mean, the fact that the town councils made the brave decision to implement both, I mean, that's quite telling.
It's really good to hear that you just that there is that link comes into you as well. It's nice for me to hear that.
Early days at the moment, town council is obviously they are responsible for employing, although I don't think there's a direct employee, but they employ the Lone Ranger. But he's definitely tying in. In future, as that evolves, because that's obviously still forming, in future there's potential to do as much more joint working with our frontline services. And if they wanted to be doing more environmental crime stuff, if they wanted some delegated authority to deal with different things that we can deal with, we can put the training and processes in place. You know, they're trusted partners. So it's just, you know, the degree of how much joint work, and the same would apply to PCSOs actually. You know, if they felt that would be useful, because of course the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act, no matter where the evidence is gathered and no matter where it comes from, actually, if fixed penalty notices are issued, we issue them and we get to keep the income from them. But it is fast becoming a really flexible, helpful way to be dealing with a whole range of issues, whether that's coming from housing, environmental health, a report for community safety, something coming through businesses. The use of community protection warnings and community protection notices, it's solving a lot of the things that we couldn't do through some of the statutory nuisance, for example. It's stuff that's below the sort of crime level. So that's all stuff we're exploring as partners as well, you know, to take full advantage of those options. Our own training that we had in environmental health, we opened that up to the partnership, for example. So lots of local PCSOs and police officers came along to that. Planning and now, you know, we've worked in development control, Tony. It takes a lot for planning to start working in new areas because they know their regulations, but they're even embracing some of the flexibility within to go down that route rather than going through the traditional notices through planning, because it actually provides you with a bit more flexibility. So.
Okay. And Councillor Wayne Howard, you had a question?
Yeah, just for Maria, I was mentioned about numbers and police going down from a number of years ago. Just over 2 weeks ago, I can't remember the exact date, I was out with a group of people and there was an ex-superintendent and a detective there, not from Daventry but live in Daventry. And they were telling me that they don't understand why the police figures are saying that there are now 10,000 police less, unless it's Bobby's on the beat, because they're saying there's actually 20,000 more policing now in the UK.
Oh, I don't. Yeah.
Than ever, because
I know
of the specialist police.
I know we've got less
on the beat.
Whichever way you cut it, we've got less police staff in Northamptonshire than we had.
Yeah, but I just wondered if we could look at or ask the question to somebody who's got the answers. Where these two ex-police officers were saying to me, everyone now is a specialist in their field. There's not a Bobby as such anymore. You're getting people are doing. I think there was 20,000 people in cybercrime police, but 10 years ago there was a handful, and the sexual cybercrime that's going on. That didn't even exist 10 years ago. No. So now there's that many more people doing things behind the scenes. So there is so many more police out there.
Yeah, some of that stuff is dealt with regionally, so you might have specialist teams. But for the community safety partnership, we have occasional contact with Special Branch, but most of our contact is actually with, you know, the neighbourhood policing
On the ground.
primarily, and then we'll get, where required, we know about other operations that happen. So we don't have that much contact with that, unless, you know, unless there was a whole. If we'd have had a massive child sexual exploitation issue on our patch, it would be different, but we haven't.
But we're not getting to the fact where these, if I go back to these two officers, ex-officers, and say, well, actually, you're right, there are, whatever the number is, there's at the moment everyone's saying there's 10,000 due to cuts. It's not down to cuts at all, is it? It's down to differential requirements.
Well, yeah,
within
I mean,
the
it's, they set their budgets, same as we, you know, they set a precept.
Yeah.
They've been putting up their precept, but they've nevertheless had their challenges the same as the rest of us. And I mean, there's definitely been, we have definitely seen fewer police, whatever, of whatever name, PCSOs, PCs, whatever, you know, all the time in our patch. That said, when they are in our patch, they are our own, and that's already embedding. So it's, you know,
The numbers, it's basically police on the ground, isn't it, that we're not seeing them where the cuts are, because the cuts, or the money's going elsewhere to other areas.
The amount of police in our patch at any given time is perhaps fewer, but they're in a situation whereas before we had more, but they could have been responding to all sorts of things anywhere in the county, whereas the ones in our patch now are in our patch. So, you know, yes, you know, it's not actually had a massive operational impact when we've had need to contact them. When we needed to plan in different events with their involvement, it's not had an operational impact. But it's true that there is fewer around. But I don't know about the 20,000 or 10,000 reduction. I know policing is changing really dramatically, and if you've been out of the force 5 years, you wouldn't recognise it now. That's anecdotally what I've been told by you know, people still serving. They talk to ex-colleagues and it's entirely different.
One final question from me. In terms of the list of priorities, is there any kind of hierarchy implied by that list, or is that something?
No, I don't think so. No, it's just, it is what it is. And we always actually struggle to get the community safety partnership to come up with a priority list.
I mean, they're all extremely valid areas.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
just-
but they're more on. They do that more than they did now. Yeah, so yeah, they're not in any particular order as they say.
Any further questions from the committee? Thank you very much for that, Maria. That was really fascinating and some really valuable work over there.
Great. Thanks
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Oh, making your report so I can. That's not good, is it?
Okay, item 6 is the committee chairman's report. Just to clarify, I obviously took over from Councillor Morgan partway through the year, but this is my report. I hadn't liaised with him in any way to compile this. So, does the committee wish me to read it out, or happy with what it is? Okay, I mean, what I would just highlight within the report is my comments about the role and work programme. You know, I really do want to focus on getting the committee back to being as productive as it was before we went through the instability of the last few months in terms of the high number of the high turnover of committee members. That has, you know, destabilised the role and work programme, and you know, we need to, you know, focus on, you know, getting that back on track and getting reports through to strategy group and council. And you know, just my message to members will be, you contact me, use me. You know, if I can do anything further to assist you in putting your reports together, then you know, please do let me know. And I know Tony and Catherine are immensely helpful to me as chairman, and you know, they'll be equally as helpful to committee members. But, you know, they need to know and I need to know what's required to assist you in those task panels. One other thing I would say is, you know, knock at the door of other councillors, you know, to assist you with task panels. The portfolio holders are, in my experience, always incredibly helpful when you ask them for their assistance or for information. But again, they need to be approached and harried and asked for whatever assistance is required. I think it may be worth just pondering for a moment the role of this committee going forward. As I alluded to in the report, there are only 20 months left on this council. That inevitably changes how the Scrutiny and Improvement Committee is going to operate. It probably puts more focus on the scrutiny aspect than any improvements that we can make because of the timescales concerned. It takes several months to get something from this committee through to council, and then quite a few months after that to get that implemented. That's not a criticism of anybody, that's just how the system works, and the democratic checks and balances in place inevitably make it a slow and steady process. Do we have any comments from around the room and any suggestions about how our focus may alter over the next few months, things that we would like to see put onto the agenda as a standing item, perhaps? This is, I don't think that the changes in front of us by any means make this committee redundant. In fact, they create new possibilities for things that we can look at, people that we need to be speaking to and getting answers from.
For me, it's a real difficult one, isn't it? I mean, we've looked at our standards and where we're going, and at a certain point, I think it's quite difficult for everyone to sort of, if I'm being honest, to maintain an enthusiasm for that with the changes going forward. Everything's just going to be, I won't say thrown in the bin, but thrown into a complete other set of stats. Without, but we still want everything to be right. That's not to say that we just wash our hands. This council cannot wash its hands of everything that goes on in the district, because that's a grave dereliction of duty. And we have got, so I agree with you, Chair, that we do have to keep an eye on everything that we're doing right to actually hand over as far as possible what goes right. And I think it's right from the staff and everyone else that we seem to do that. Obviously, though, going forward, I think we should also be scrutinising the changes that are coming in. How we do that is
The challenge. I mean,
a massive, huge challenge that I'm not sure how we actually go about it.
I think that's going to be a task for myself as chairman to speak with certainly Councillor Miller as leader and probably the chief executive to see what information we can get out of the meetings that are taking place. I think even maybe today or tomorrow there's a leaders meeting from all councils in the county minus Corby regarding the next steps in the move to unitary. That is a meeting of the leaders only. That inevitably throws up questions about transparency, accountability to the public. I think that's where the scrutiny panel can play a role if we can get the information. And so I'll have that conversation with certainly Councillor Miller to begin with and see where we can go from there.
So are you envisaging that there's almost like a report or list of actions that have happened that we can then look at and then maybe just, well, what on earth does that mean and what are the ramifications of that and what are we doing about
Yes,
it?
I've already suggested to Councillor Miller that we put a standing item on the agenda of scrutiny. It'll be bi-monthly progress report and updates on the unitarisation process. And that's the starting point. We need more clarity around that and more ideas in the pot. Councillor Rich.
It strikes me that the processes of the Scrutiny Committee are designed for long-term look at how DDC is delivering services. In terms of the timetables between now and 2012, I just don't see that working. By the time that we decide there is something, by the time the Scrutiny Committee decides there is something that it ought to examine, by the time it has examined it, and then through all the procedures of reporting back to the committee, reporting through strategy to a council meeting and things, the issue would be long over and dead. And I just feel that, for this sort of exercise, there needs to be a completely different way of doing things.
So I think that's a very valid suggestion. We need to look at some kind of expedited process so that we can put maybe discussion papers on the agenda at strategy or council to have a look at things in a far quicker timetable.
Ken's got any ideas?
Well, sorry, I think if there's a report and information coming through to this committee, which is once every 2 months, but there's still you can't be collecting and picking things up every single week, but maybe, I'm not sure how the constitution works, but maybe there should be a scrutiny report into full council, which gives another chance for everyone else to understand where that's going and what the queries are. Maybe that just expedites it a little bit, because I don't think personally I don't see that we'll be working on projects within that. I think it's basically just asking the pertinent questions and having the means of getting the answers, and maybe those answers come back to here and or full council, so everyone can hear them. Maybe that's a mechanism, but that would be an actual work.
Yes, Tony.
Chairman, if I just make a couple of observations, actually, I think that perhaps there's an opportunity to work with our partners at SNC, NBC and NCC, certainly in looking at where we're going as a West Northants unitary authority. I'm sure there are members there who will be having the same sort of concerns and discussions that you're having at the moment. So there's perhaps an opportunity to do that. I think in terms of the process and the length of time to conduct a task panel and through to strategy group and the rest of it, that's largely in your hands as a committee. And I'm saying it as it is. I mean, we have an agenda tonight with a number of verbal updates where we might have been expecting interim reports or final reports, and that's within your gift to get that work done. So it needn't take 2 or 3 cycles of this meeting. It could be something done fairly quickly. So that's an issue for you. And the other point is, I think you said 20 months. I think by my counting it's 19 months now. So it's moving on fairly quickly. But there is 19 months of business as usual for this council. We have to continue to deliver the services and deliver to the council's objectives. So there will be a significant effort on business as usual whilst other stuff is going on in terms of the unitary agenda. So,
very valid point, and I know that the staff here will continue with business as usual as far as it's possible.
Yep.
So is it the
I think that's a really good point on the other councils going forward to form the unitary. It would be quite interesting to, if we could sort of make contacts with people on their scrutiny organisations, however they work that, to, as Tony said, to understand what they're looking at and understand their concerns, and maybe just put that into that goes into our bi-monthly into our sort of report that goes back into the council, so we understand what we're doing.
Is that with all councils, or would you say more like Borough, South Northants?
I'm thinking South Northants and Borough, really,
Yeah.
because that's the pertinent places of the handover, isn't it? I think it gets to unwieldy otherwise. I mean, we're talking about completely different things that have no bearing on where we're going. If we could be, we need to understand the questions that maybe we're missing and need to ask, and likewise from that point of view. So,
Certainly once the shadow body is formed, it's my understanding that there will be representatives from certainly NBC and SNC as well as ourselves within that shadow body, so we're not going to be influencing what happens in the northern unitary, and I'm sure they would see what's going to happen here. So, Councillor Ritchie, did you have?
More or less the point you've made, that if this council has got people who are effectively our delegates on a shadow body, then there's a task in asking questions about what they're doing on that shadow body.
I think, again, just a couple of observations. You made reference, Chairman, to a meeting that leaders and chief execs are having, which I believe is tomorrow morning, which is looking at the next steps. And you'll recall from the resolutions at Council that there's a pre-shadow arrangement that they're looking at, and I can't remember the terminology now, but I think somebody's referring to it as a shadow, but it's to get the steer and direction rather than waiting until April next year when a formal shadow arrangement is likely to be in place. So we may get some indication of that within the next few days if the discussions go the way they I understand them to be going. The other point was about yes, in terms of working with other authorities, then I guess South Northampton, Northampton Borough would be the natural sort of authorities to lean to, and particularly if concerns are around representation of district services, rural, Northampton is not actually wrong. Let's forget about that for a moment. But district services going into a unitary. But don't forget the county. The county will be a significant part of a unitary authority, and there will be issues about merging district services in with county services, and so there's a whole area of work and confusion around that, I suspect, at this stage.
Absolutely. Okay, so is it the committee's desire to accept the reports?
yes.
So we'll leave that there.
I think, Chairman, if I may, just to note that this report will now go on to Council, not
Yes.
Council meeting.
So you go direct to council rather than to strategy? Okay, so item 7 is the rolling work programme. Assignment 22, can DEC take a more coherent and proactive approach to ensuring that people speak seen, etc. Councillor Howard, I believe that you've discussed this with other people and this can be matched up.
Yes. Well, it's any report with a scoping document and brief in excess of 12 months. It would be very difficult to complete, and I spoke to Joe Guildford, and we believe that the liaison board is part of the Norse arrangements, and it will be acting as a means of scrutiny of environmental services, and therefore negates the need of a task panel. However, I've just had to scribble down, so I did put 18 months and then I've whittled it down to 12 months now. Maybe we could come back once the contract's been embedded, and maybe it's worth the panel having a look at the contract as a whole to see whether the new type of contract has a positive impact on the service as a whole. Perhaps this could be put on the rolling work programme, as you suggested. I have got some other points as to how we came up with that conclusion, and I spoke to other people, which I can happily circulate around.
Yes, please,
Yeah.
that'd be helpful.
So obviously I don't want to do nothing. So I've kind of come up with, as we all know, antisocial behaviour is a serious problem and affects the quality of life of individuals, families and communities. So I was going to suggest a review of DDC's antisocial behaviour current strategy, and if we can we do better? This would involve, can DDC do more to help antisocial behaviours compared to other councils, to find out how effective the ASB service standards is, and awareness/effectiveness of DDC's self-service. I believe the DDC officer would be Maria Taylor, and the portfolio holder would be Councillor Alan Hills, and task panel members, I'm just pending on a couple for them, but I can report back on that.
Okay. I would suggest if you've got the scoping document template, and to get that into Catherine and Tony as soon as possible, and then that can go to SMT for any feedback on any improvements that might be made to just focus it as much as possible, and then you can get going on it from there.
Brilliant.
Any comments or suggestions on? I think it sounds like a really worthy piece of work. Okay, so assignment 25.
Sorry, Chairman, sorry to interrupt. I think just for clarity, then are the committee agreeing that assignment 22 is closed?
I will propose that.
Yeah.
Councillor Wesley, happy for that to be closed? Yeah. Okay, assignment 25, which is a review of DDC's management of property holdings. It's got me down to provide a verbal update. This wasn't actually my assignment. It was with
Councillor Micklewright.
It was with Councillor Micklewright, wasn't it? So, who has since left and has advised me that he won't be making progress on it. It was his desire initially to submit something, but it doesn't. I think if we keep that on the this may be a convenient point to mention that Councillor Pritchard communicated to me earlier today, as did Councillor Randall, that Councillor Pritchard sadly is having to step down from the scrutiny panel for personal reasons. So thank him for his contributions over his time on this committee. And the last I heard, Councillor Randall had put forward the name of Councillor Ritchie to join us on the committee, which we very much look forward to, if that is Councillor Ritchie's desire.
I didn't detail that this afternoon.
On the grapevine.
He's here anyway.
Absolutely. So I don't know if that's if you have any ideas on what you would like to focus on, whether property holdings is in any way of interest to you. I know it was
I'm sure it's a very, very worthy issue.
I think it was of interest to Councillor Micklewright, and make of that what you will. But I mean, unless somebody has a particular, Councillor Howard and Councillor Wesley both have commitments at the moment. Once I have concluded assignment 28, which we'll come to in a moment, I'm going to be focusing on scrutiny issues and trying to clarify exactly how we can tie that in. I would propose to remove this from the rolling work programme unless there are any objections.
Chair, I think that would be really sensible. I mean, it's if required, it's sort of in the ether as a
Yes.
as a possible project.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's something that's not a chance of doing.
Agree.
Okay, that's agreed. So we come to assignment 26, Councillor Wesley.
Obviously, I have to give some apologies on this. I've had some family circumstances which left me a little bit lost for a little while. So, but back on it now. I've got to arrange a meeting with my colleague here. There is a system. So hopefully we can get this sorted out of the way fairly quickly. I don't have a chance to catch up. I'm rearranging my side of the meetings. I've got one campaign next week. Just making sure that we're able to come back to me. Hopefully, so I'm putting pressure on myself on that to get those done fairly quickly. And I know Councillor Richie's done some background work as well, so I'll be liaising with Ken on that one, so we won't go through bits and pieces that what hasn't done now.
No, that is
That is moving again, and I'll pass it on to the next meeting.
Okay, so we're anticipating an interim or a final report for the next meeting?
Well, I would say sort of interim at least, I would say. But bearing in mind what we've just been reminded of by our officer over there, we'll do our best to get that, considering that if Council Richards can run the committee and checking out the project, then we need to get that on, because otherwise it's going to be quite overwhelming on this part.
Okay, yeah.
Or I take on
No problem, I think that's something we can look at further down the line. Item D is voluntary services support that Councillor Pritchard was looking at. I don't want to take any action on this at this moment in time, if that's okay with the committee. May I ask Councillor Ritchie if you could liaise with Councillor Pritchard when he's able to look at this kind of thing and just establish
I mean, I understand the start to this project.
That was my understanding.
I think there's uncertainty. He's also got a family situation that's, I don't know how long it will last or how it will resolve itself. So,
I mean, I think this is something that is, of importance to the DDC and very much an area worth looking at. So I'm highly reticent to remove it from the rolling work programme at this stage.
I was going to say, and I think if there has been some querying work on it, maybe one of the to take for some of this stuff.
Absolutely. So if we park that one for now, Simon Tate is the sale of the Cledeckle properties in Middlemore. My update is that I have liaised with Simon Bowers. I always need to think carefully before saying Simon Baby or Simon Bowers. I'm just chasing up some additional information from him. There's other areas of research that I've concluded, but I need to have a meeting with Councillor Ritchie again before submitting anything to the SMT. It is my, I do see it as a matter of urgency to get the final report to SMT in good time for the November meeting to wrap this up. I think we did well to conclude the most pressing aspect of this issue, but it would be irresponsible to overlook the fact that for a lot of residents there are unresolved issues and they want answers to them either way. This does need to come to a conclusion, and we're keen to get that conclusion in November. So I'll make that commitment now that as soon as I return from my holiday, this will be top of my list. And then just to update the committee, Councillor Robertson contacted me over the weekend. He has determined that he's going to submit a scoping document to the very near future, over the next few days or a couple of weeks. He's going to start looking at an aspect of the Norse joint venture. He wants to focus on that. So we'll wait his ideas with interest, and it's certainly one of the main priorities for this council, as I put in my report. This is one of probably our biggest service area, the most visible aspect of what Daventry District Council does, and actually it would be fascinating to see what model of waste and recycling service the new unitary takes up, but let's not get into that now. So if we can proceed to item 8 on the agenda, which is implementation activity, and
Yes, David. You've got the papers in your pack there, so just take you through those. So, page 25, which is assignment 16, there's been no change on that since last time, and you'll note the timescale is November 18, so whilst we're getting closer to that, we haven't actually achieved achieved that yet. Page 27 on assignment 17, there's two amber actions there. Item 2 is no change. Item 3, there's some additional commentary or some change commentary there, particularly around the shopfront renovation grants. So there's some activity there, but still work to be done. On then to page 29, assignment 19, and there's no change in that from last time. The one remaining action is in regard to Leisure Centre East with a target date of 2020, so we may or may not see that go through in terms of this council's future.
It may not be something that you can answer, Tony, but are there any, is anything being done to safeguard the work done so far to ensure the delivery of that facility? Or I'm just concerned about slippage when we move it to new unitary authority. I know we have no control over what a new body does. That's an impossibility, but that council will obviously come in with a different set of priorities. Some of them may be shared, but inevitably there will be different ideas, and it would be a terrible shame for people in that part of the district to lose the facility that they've fought long and hard for.
Yes, Chairman. I think work is still going on with that, and I think I'm not directly involved, but there's a review of the open spaces and something strategy, which is we're trying to draw to conclusion, which will demonstrate the need or otherwise for that facility. And I think in terms of looking forward into where we might be in the unitary authority, Leisure Centre East really is around serving the residents of the Malton Ulverston area, which will be part of a piece of work with Northampton Borough, I suspect, what is Northampton Borough today. So it will still be an issue for the unitary, unless it is resolved in some way before we get there. But yes, work is ongoing, and certainly whatever work is or whatever stage that work is, that will be coming forward. Then on to page 31, assignment 20. There was one action outstanding there, which is item 4 in that action plan. That's not changed since our last meeting. It's still aimed to be done in the second half of 2019. On to page 35, assignment 21. The first two actions, although says not due yet, I did notice actually just preparing for the meeting this evening that the first one is August, it's August 2019, not 2018, so we're okay. I've been worried for a minute, so first two actions are not yet due, and action 5 is some ongoing work there in respect of the homelessness families. And finally, on page 37 is the assignment 23, which was the Scrutiny task panel. The one agreed action from council was the additional meeting for the committee, and we've had discussion and agreed that will go into the schedule for next year, which is due to go to council, I believe, in December for confirmation.
Thank you very much, Tony. Item number 9, 1-year post-implementation activity reviews. I believe they're on.
They're non-due, Chairman.
And I know we regularly have this discussion, and then plans change, people are away, and we don't manage to get who we want. But portfolio holder attendance at scrutiny, I think it's worth, in the context of the report and the discussion that we've already had this evening, who would be of most value for us as a committee to hear from, and then we can invite them ASAP to make sure that that's in their diary. We've heard from Councillor Guildford a couple of times quite recently. Councillor Robertson is going to be looking at Norse as a task panel anyway, so I would be keen not to invite Councillor Guildford again. It may be that we wish to invite Councillor Miller for more information on the route to unitary kilometres, or are there any other suggestions?
To me, Chair, that is the obvious one. It's too obvious, but I think if we can be putting one forward, we need to sort of set off on the right foot and how he sees it, where he sees it, and how, just ask us about how we get the information, how it's going to be similar to what we've mentioned. I think that
Councillor Howard?
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a very good idea. I think you should give him topics specifically on what does shadow mean, what does the shadow of the shadow actually mean, for instance. Who's going to be, possibly, if they know what at the time he comes, who will be the shadow leader, who will be the shadow chief exec. So I think then you guys would need to be part of a scrutiny team, in fact, and ask, so we can scrutinise the best of Daventry district going into this shadow, because if we're going to have the smallest amount of elected members, we're not going to have much say, whatever party political, with Daventry district, and that's what's important to me. And I would advise, if a note could go out from scrutiny, I've tried to do it through, I can't do it through a portfolio role, but there's not many people attend the meetings that we have. I think the next one's on the 11th, Ken, isn't it? The next
It is, because I would be there.
That's right, you're right.
This is the working group.
There's very, very little turn up to that meeting. So when we have a meeting,
what time are they?
4 o'clock.
afternoon, if people can turn up, I think they should do, because there's so much miss when we go. We've had training, people miss the training. We also had, when we had the big meeting, there was a few people on holiday, which I understand people have to have holidays, but the unitary is, with the county events, is a dire mess. So I think you guys need to, think of questions over the next day or so, and then send out a request to the leader and ask him questions. Rather than come and talk about his role as leader, I'm not interested in that anymore. What I'm interested in what is going to happen is. So you need to be very hard and think very wisely on some of the questions.
Just about thinking on questions, and I'm away for 2 weeks after tonight. I prefer actually, given that we haven't been here that long, if we could just get at least some areas of focus with Councillor Miller, and I'll send out the invitation tonight or tomorrow morning before I leave, so that he has the maximum amount of time possible to plan for this and to confirm his ability to attend or otherwise. So Councillor Howard's already suggested more information on the shadow structure, who will take up certain roles within that shadow structure. Daventry's particular role and the representation of Daventry within the shadow, or within the
shadow, or what will be the shadow of the shadow, because obviously we can't stand still and wait till this happens to get the shadow going. We need to be part of the biggest failing of the county that I've seen over the last 6 months I've been studying it, was there was no scrutiny of, and the opposition scrutinised hard enough the cabinet, and the cabinet system destroys things when everything's got walls around it. So, and questions should be forced as well. I don't believe that we should be getting out of the cabinet, and this, if we keep saying it all the time, then maybe people will listen to the fact that we could probably ask that. as an ask, sorry.
So I'll take Tony's
Yeah, just
clarification
trying
first.
to clarify a little bit around that. The formal shadow arrangements will be part of the order from government, so that will prescribe how that body is constituted. I think more urgently, it's and I can't remember the names of the boards. It was agreed there was going to be a county-wide board and then a West Northamptonshire board that was part of the resolution from council. And I think your more pressing is the constitution of those boards. Dare I suggest the priority work streams.
Councillor Ritchie.
A related issue is one of accountability. When we have a council meeting, the council the council is sovereign within Daventry and can take decisions. We are accountable for the decisions we take to our electorates, but we're effectively independent. When it comes to the shadow, there'll be people who are there because they have been nominated in some sense, and therefore the issue of to whom they are accountable and whether they are then as a collective they have freedom to act. What freedoms will they have to act without a reference back to the councils that put them there? To what extent will they be there as people who are appointees or there as delegates? And how we sort of get that sort of balance? Clearly, there's no point in setting up a shadow and then expecting the shadow to refer back for every decision that it's ever got to take. It's not to be done. But how do we get the correct balance and saying that look, we're supporting this, but while the district council and the other councils exist and are running services and have created this thing, it's not an autonomous body in the same way as as a new unitary will be. And I just feel that there are issues there.
That's fair enough. Yeah, it can be added to the list, certainly. Do you have any other priority areas that you can give council another for? I think this is something that's going to develop pace between now and the November meeting.
For me, one of the things is just the communication. How is everything communicated to everybody? And not just, we'll communicate that bit, but we won't communicate that bit. It sort of comes back to what Councillor Ritchie's just said. So there's a sort of scrutiny of it where I think this council needs to know what decisions have been made, or what is actually being proposed. And I think we almost as a council, I think if it's not scrutinising, the council needs to scrutinise and actually, even if you can't make any sort of substantive vote on it, it should be debated and noted what this council actually thinks about what is happening going forward, instead of things will happen and to some extent I think it is going to be out of our control, but I think for the sake of clarity and for assurances of the people in this district and county, I think it's incumbent that the people that have been elected at least make their views known and actually have the ability to make their views known and what's going on. It's Councillor Wayne Howard said, closed doors is the last thing that we want in this county at the moment. And it's absolutely, nothing should be hidden on this walk before it comes to something we think about.
Sorry, Chair. I think the first getting over the line was the important bit, but it wasn't anybody's, that I understand, from any party's wish to go into two unitaries. I think three would have been perfect, but it was never going to happen from reports that we all read. So getting past the line was the most important. This is the most important time, I think, that any form of scrutiny is going to take place. This next patch or next phase we go into, it's critical to get it right for Daventry district.
And from my perspective, I said it on the night at full council that we as district and borough councils and as Northamptonshire as a whole have gone to government with a list of challenges, and we really need to be proactive and unfailing in making sure that those challenges are met and that the public are aware whether or not they're being met. So I think that's, as we say, scrutiny of this whole process is absolutely crucial.
Not sure if it is a Chris thing or not, but just wondering what we're doing about like the safeguarding of the assets that we want Daventry to be remembered for, and that to make sure they're secure, for example, in Country Park, and things that are of value to the residents. And then what are we doing with communication with, like, for example, the town council? Is that a Chris thing? Or is that...
I mean, I think that's a general issue around unitaries. Obviously, anything that is an asset of a council within what will be West Northamptonshire will end up as an asset of West Northamptonshire Council, or whatever name it formally takes when it is set up. So you're talking about what's safe. There are assets of community value, things like that can be formally.
I think, sorry Chair, I just saw something. I think there's various things that obviously, we've all seen the signs around the country park, which is sort of changing the...
Very bad English.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Nobody reads.
I mean, I think what Councillor Howard there is sort of says to us is that, crikey, there's so many things that everybody needs to look at here, isn't it? It's just almost, it's that everything needs looking at, unfortunately. It's like, and assets, it's like our assets of a value against the debt, or are they just an unsaleable asset? I mean, for instance, the country park, it's only the grounds are only partly owned by this council. The actual reservoir is owned by the Canal and River Trust. So I'm just saying, there's a value in there, but obviously, you just have it's ready to be built on. So intrinsically, there's no monetary value in it. In fact, it's probably a drain on resources. So you actually don't want it to be an asset per se, do you? You actually want it to be almost the other way around. You don't want to value it at £20 million and the markets. I'm just saying that I think the key to it is that we know what is going on, how assets are being divided, and the values that go on. I mean, it's that sort of thing on the communication side that we do need to know, isn't it? We need to say, well, wait a minute, that's, we need to be, we need to be shouting about that back at whoever is on that shadow board and make sure that they don't do anything that this council think is untoward. And I think that covers almost everything. It's going to affect services, that's going to cover the stuff we've been talking about today. I mean, Councillor Ritchie spoke about, for instance, this building being a haven and a refuge for people that are running away from danger. It may not happen every week. I think that's what you were saying earlier, wasn't it? What happens to this building? Is there going to be any refuge or any point of contact for people in this town and the district? It's everything, and that's the problem.
Yes, I mean it is such a wide-ranging issue, and I think there are specifics that will be impossible to provide answers to until very late on in the process. But Councillor Ritchie.
First, I said that what you were saying does chime a little bit with some of the criticism that appeared in the papers today of the government's new, what do you call it, national planning framework, about this danger that some see in our natural assets and simply see as financial assets. But I have heard, and sometimes you hear things that might not be totally true, but I have been told that there are other councils across Northamptonshire that are very busy trying to create town councils with a view to parking some of their assets with the town councils. I mean, I'm sure they're not simply allowed to create a body and sign a cheque to it, there must be all sorts of other ways in which the assets that are there that might be regarded as things that are important to local communities can be protected in that way. And I just wonder, I know that for some that this might be sort of a sensitive area, but the relationship between this council, particularly in Daventry Town Council, I think that we need to get that right, because the Town Council is going to, potentially could be very much more important in the future than it is now. I mean, at the moment, the District Council does a lot of the things that you might expect a Town Council to do.
So
Well, that's
maybe,
how
maybe we could put to Councillor Miller clarification on the role of the Town Council and Parish Councils, because there are larger Parish Councils.
Yes, I think that needs to be there, and then perhaps even as an issue that that this committee needs to follow up in the future.
Transfer of assets. I think you were talking about legacy, weren't you?
I don't touch anything.
No,
Poorly.
You were mentioning legacy. I mean, one of the ways to ensure that is transfer of either legacy service or legacy property. For instance, you did say that alcohol service along with the other assets. There is still unbuilt on sites around Daventry that have planning permission. Obviously, there's values in that, isn't there? But having said that, we might want to say that they actually being protected as just pure sites. So as the political stance changes on that, we need to look at also points about the question about how and what we can do.
Okay, so I think if I just recap then the main areas that we asked Councillor Miller to focus on. So it's going to be the accountability of our delegates or the members representing Daventry on the boards that are being formed, communication and transparency issues generally, how we're going to be kept informed and how we can hold the people partaking in the process to account, the role of town and parish councils, how we can protect legacy. Just about there.
Just noting about Tony obviously was really good in sort of kicking this off with the understanding. Can I actually ask Tony a question? Tony, is there anything that we, in your view, that we should be holding those people to account from your side of things, from staff side of things? Is there anything that the elected members can do that we're not talking about here to actually look after, to ensure that things are being done in the right way for the staff and the contracts and the people that are in place? Anything that you can think of?
Well, I think it's reasonable to have that as a sort of heading within the sort of issues that you raised with the leader. I know, the leader has spoken and he's spoken to the council about
measures to protect the interests of staff.
Yeah, wanting to do the best for the staff here. And in fairness to him, he says that on a regular basis.
He does indeed, but I think it's important that it's perhaps formalised a little bit in terms of, as we are the scrutiny panel here, that we can actually say that and make sure that everyone knows.
That will be on the list then. What measures are being discussed to protect the interests of the staff and their future prospects? Okay,
So you, Chair, one of the things I think everybody would mention was gifted assets. So if you could ask the leader as well, maybe something down, if we're going to look to gift assets to
I've got assets down here, even if I didn't say it just then.
Because you can gift to a degree, but there's heritage things. Landowners would give open spaces before, people had other things to do in their lives. So you'd go and sit in parks.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do something with that. And everyone behind land beyond the back of the police station was gifted to the town.
Abington Park was gifted to the town of Daventry when Lady wanted.
There's a lot of things I think we could do, but I think there's a lot of things we won't be allowed to do as well.
Yeah.
The further we get down.
Absolutely.
Find out what.
Yeah, we can get.
I don't mean everything
let's
obviously
go.
in barrel, because as South Lance maybe said, there are sensible things we can do.
I mean, sorry, obviously I'm a member of the town council as well, so there are, sort of, picking up on discussions. There are some negative things as well that could be gifted to the town, and that's just as important for the town as well, and for the taxpayers of the town.
Yeah.
If you're, for instance, if you're kindly gifted the churchyard, it's a huge expense.
That will balance when it
I think that for a transaction such as that, there were two parties.
Yeah, I'm just,
then,
but I'm just saying that, there is,
There's a cost and reset there, isn't
When I
there?
say that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as a town councillor I don't want the churchyard, I'm just saying that as a councillor on both sides, what we've got to think about is what we're here to do is to look after the resident, the residents.
And I think we've kind of formulated our list to submit to Councillor Miller in the hope that he can attend. So I will copy you all in on that email when it goes either tonight or tomorrow morning. And
Yeah, we're meeting that one, I guess.
yes,
I think though with the short timescale, they may have to come a few times. Like as in, for him to have it booked in, scheduled.
I'll make a suggestion. And,
Sorry, Chair, that's forever moving in a circle though, this unitary thing.
Oh, it
That's
is.
changed. When
Yeah.
Ken been going to his meetings, every 2 weeks they were totally changing
Yeah.
what was happening and what was happening. The ministers was coming up with different things.
As I'm sure you know from Amy, the county council situation is something that's changing on a daily basis.
I've been watching and listening.
But anyway, that concludes item 10. Item 11 is urgent business. There isn't any, so meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Enjoy your holiday.
Not quite.
Ken, you're going sooner, aren't you?